And I'm also interested in hearing, I know you have an extensive background in the military. Are you comfortable telling us a little bit about, what you did and how long you served?
Yeah, I joined the Navy in 1979. I didn't go active until 80. I was 4 years Navy, and I wanted to go a little further. I was enlisted in the Navy, and so I had an opportunity to join the Guard, and they told me they'd send me to OCS, Officer Candidate School, where my son here just recently finished up. He went through the federal program, but so I got out of the Navy and went into the National Guard and went to OCS with the intention of going back on active duty, and that was coming into the Clinton years, and the Soviet Union had fallen and they were downsizing the Army. So I didn't get to go active duty for many more years, but then when things kicked up and ended up on active duty and ultimately retired from active duty in Fort Hood, Texas. I retired as a mobilization brigade commander from Fort Hood, Texas. A lot of years later, it lacked 18 days, being 36 years from the time I signed to my retirement date.
Thank you for your service.
It was good.
And now let's kind of just, recap a very scary, traumatic experience that you faced recently. I guess let's just start from the beginning, what you were off to do that day.
Well, all I really was going to do is go over and buy a dump trailer for use around here and pick it up and drive it back. So that's really a very simple process. It went a little crazy when the guy wasn't there where I was given an address, and then he said that he'd had an emergency with his daughter and she'd burned her arm. He was in the hospital and his son was going to meet me. And a couple of little crazy things started happening after that just didn't really smell right, and I could have come on back, but there was a language barrier because there's so many illegals in the country now, or else even the new immigrants that have not yet learned to speak English, but a lot of them are legal.
Dad speaks broken Spanish.
And so I speak broken Spanish, and I said, it's not a problem, we'll get by. So I met the guy and was gonna go pick up the dump trailer, but a couple of things started seeming strange. As at that point, I said, this is a little bit weird, and I took my revolver and I stuck it up under my leg. I said, something's a little crazy here, but it wasn't so crazy that I felt I needed to abandon and just forget the chance of getting the trailer and come on back. Needed the trailer. And I bought a lot of things off the marketplace, and so it just kind of went that way. And so that's when I knew things were not exactly the way that they should have been. But it wasn't so crazy that I decided to abandon the opportunity to get the trailer.
And I mean, you said you've bought a lot of things off marketplace before, so this wasn't unusual.
No, it's not unusual.
So, when you got there, there was a lot of, things that maybe didn't seem right, but you just gave it, the benefit of the doubt.
I gave it the benefit of the doubt because there is the language barrier, and many of the people, even the illegals, are just here trying to make a better life. Which one of us wouldn't do that to try to make a better life? Doesn't make it right. We ought to have policies that prevent that, yet could potentially give away for those that have all the right intentions and want to come here and make this country better and serve and work and not come for handouts or crime. And there's no differentiation whatsoever with this administration between the categories. It's just you come to the border, they give you money that's not even, that they do nothing to earn, creating an enormous debt, and then they just turn you loose to go do whatever. And many come here and work hard, try to make a better life, and others turn to crime.
And when things started to go wrong and south, I mean...
All right, when things started to go south at the end, he had taken me to a couple of places that said was his family's, where his mom was supposed to meet us and bring the trailer and the title to the trailer, but she wasn't there, and I said, okay, this is not gonna work. And we were in someone's driveway that was probably 100 yards long or so, and it was very secluded. There was a tree line on both sides of the driveway, and and we were there, and I said, look, I said, I'm not going to hang around here. I said, you haven't seen anybody? I just said, I'm going to need to be going. And it was at that point that he took his knife and he stuck it to my throat, and this little demon voice came out of him, and he wasn't a very big guy, your size maybe, and this little demon voice came out of it demanding all my money. And so when I looked down and I saw the knight and heard the little demon voice, and he was sitting in the passenger seat at that point. And so I just grabbed his arm and slammed it against the steering wheel and started reaching for my pistol. And I think he knew things were not going according to his plan at that point, because he jumped up in the seat and started going, no, 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 which is the same in Spanish and English. But, and he was able to jump through over the center console and into the back seat. And I still had his arm, and I guess it was at that point he was probably slinging the knife, and that's when he made these cuts, because he was trying with his hand probably, but his arm wasn't going anywhere. I had him. And so I stuck the gun under here and just shot him. I mean, the guy's trying to cut my throat. And at that point, he basically became a rag doll in my hand. And my gun, I went to shoot him again. But a revolver doesn't misfire, it just doesn't malfunction. It's not very often. That's just almost unheard of. But that one didn't fire. And so I'm sitting here, and I got his hand against the passenger seat, and I'm beating his hand with the revolver, trying to pull the trigger, beating his hand with, and he shot bad. And he's just a rag doll. I mean, it wouldn't have been a problem to beat him to death in the back seat. I might have got the gun to work, maybe if I slapped it against the steering wheel or something, and just shot him again. That wouldn't have been a problem. He was not giving me any trouble at that point. And this voice says, just throw it down and let him have everything. And which I thought was pretty weird, because that's not in my DNA. I'm an old soldier, and you don't do that. You just don't do that. But yet there was that voice, and I'm like, oh no. And so I'm steady beating his hand again, and trying to get the gun to fire, and beating his hand, and the voice says it again. It says, just throw it all down and get away. And so at that point, I just kind of shake my head, and I throw the gun across the other passenger side, which I think is not functioning anyway. And I get out and start to go down the road towards the front of the road, because I knew I'd need to get down to the road. He finds the energy to get up in the driver's seat. Of course, truck's still running there. And he took off down the road like he's going to run over me, and I just stepped off into the tree line. No big deal. He goes past me, and he stopped. Instead of going on, he stopped. And I ran out into the tree line, and there was a fence which I could have just jumped over and just been gone. He wasn't going to chase me. The guy's in probably not much better shape than I am. He was hurt. I wasn't even hurt at that point. I think I probably had a cut on my face, but I wasn't hurt at that point. That's not what happened. He comes out of the truck with the gun, now functioning, and he goes up into the tree line, and so I've just been told, just, you're good. I feel like that's where I'm supposed to be. And so he comes up there, and I'm thinking, oh, this is is it's kind of surreal. And I was never scared. I was never mad or anything like that. And so he comes up there with the gun, and I'm thinking, well, God, I hope you're going to keep that gun malfunctioning, because this is not how, at least not my plan for the end was. And I said, I'm an old soldier, I don't want to be shot down like a dog after what anybody would argue is a terrible decision, to throw my gun down and walk away from it and be up there in the woods. Somebody finds me. It's not my plan for exit. So I think, well, maybe the gun's not going to function Well, he walks up there, and I'm kind of playing squirrel as he's going up there, not being his direct line of sight, but he walks on up there. I mean, he's 10 feet, less than 10 feet. I mean, he was on top of me. And he shot me through here. Well, I knew the end of the gun was working okay. So he shot me through here, and it knocked me back. It was a gun that's designed to do its job. It's called a Judge. It's a 45 long Colt 410 shot shell revolver. It does a really nice job with proper ammo. I can assure you that. And so he shot me here, knocked me down, knocked me backwards, and then he executed me twice on the ground from standing above me. And that's when he got me here and down in my leg. Some patches just through there, and then there's a bullet wound here, and then in the shoulder was the first shot, which is a big old hole, but it didn't take out anything, and it just goes right on through the back. But it didn't take out anything that'll keep me from functioning later on. In fact, it didn't take a whole lot of muscle. So I'm down on the ground. He thinks I'm dead. Not far from it. And he goes back to the truck, and there's somebody stopped at the end of the road by that point. And I see him. I look down that way, and I see him, and he sees me moving. There was one more round in the gun, and he points it up and shoots it at me from the truck. It didn't hit me, so he goes off. I get up because I had no idea how long that I would be there, and I knew I was hurt pretty bad. I jump up and I run down to the truck where the gentleman and the passenger and the driver, and his name is Pat. I found out later. But I run up to him and I say, "Hey, I'm shot. I need your help." He said, "We're going to call 911." So they call 911, put me down on the ground, and start putting pressure on my wounds. Well, I'm a Christian, and I have been praying for a while that God would give me an opportunity to be a stronger witness, more credible witness, because there's a lot of people running around here living a good life. Things are in their favor, and they've got no real adversity. We've all got adversity in varying degrees, but I've been kind of jealous of the sort some guys they've gone through cancer scares, and I tell them this is a chance for you to show your faith. When you're looking at death, that you have a chance to show your faith. And not your faith that God's going to heal you then or whatever, but that you're going to be okay. You know, he doesn't always heal us on this earth, but you're going to be okay. I wasn't thinking about all this at that point, but it came to me later. So they put me in the ambulance, and there's Jonathan's right here, and Nick is right here, and then there's the driver, and the driver says, "Where are we going?" And Jonathan says, "UAB, I don't know if we're flying or driving." Well, I kind of knew then that I wasn't in good shape, or they wouldn't be looking at getting a helicopter medevac for a 45-minute drive. And so medevac didn't answer, and I'm telling Jonathan, I said, let's just go. And didn't know that Brad, that works with the Coleman County Sheriff's Department, was on the other end. I think he's a victim services or officer or something, but anyway, he was on the other end on the radio saying, just take him. So it's kind of funny, because being in the military, I'm trained for making decisions on the spot, and apparently he was too. But we agreed, and they took off, and I tell Nick, I said, you've got to call my son. I need you to call my son. And he says, we'll get him just right now. We just need to worry about getting you stable. I said, no, you need to call my son. This may be my last chance to talk to him, and I got to talk to him. So he called, and Jeb didn't answer. He was on a date with his wife in the movie theater. Fortunately, it's about over. And he said he didn't answer. I said, call him back. Leave him a message. So Nick called him back, left him a message. Jeb said, well, this must be something. He's thinking in the movie theater, and he goes out and he listens to the voicemail, and it says, "This is Nick with EMS. I need you to call me back. It's about your dad." So Jeb called me back, and I was able to, in some of the worst of situations, to tell my son, look, bud, I don't know what my status is. I've been shot 3 times. I'm not in good shape. But I want you to know that God's plan is always perfect. It's perfect. Might not look good to us, might not feel too good to us, and don't feel too good to me right now. You know, a dead Guatemalan in my back seat in many ways would be a lot easier than this. But it doesn't give God the glory of doing this miracle and using it to His goodness, and at the same time fulfilling something that I've been asking for, was a chance to show that my faith is real. And so I was able to tell him, just trust God, trust God's plan, no matter what. And then at that point, I was good. If I die, let's go to the hospital, let's do whatever, and it's what it is. You know, I was good. God's plan is always better. I didn't know at the time. I'm sitting here, and there's no glory for me. I did the stupidest thing possible from a military perspective. From every bit of my DNA and training and everything, there would have been a young kid that really lost his way in the back seat dead. There's nothing great about that. But for God to work it out, show His miracle, show His goodness, and get the glory that He deserves, while completely removing any kind of personal pride I might have from the equation, is, that's God.
And your story, is so inspirational. I want to kind of go back to that moment when you were, in the middle of all this, at that point when you were, there laying on the ground. You've already been shot, and you get shot 2 more times.
Yeah, he meant to execute me. He stood above me and shot me twice from me to you, with the purpose of executing me.
What was running through your mind in that exact moment?
My struggle was, in the Bible, there's this prophet of God named Balaam. And he wasn't a good prophet of God. And it could have been anything else, but this is what was running through my mind. It could have been a bunch of different things. This is the one. And he didn't serve God well. He had a gift, as many people do that have enormous gifts, but they don't use them for good. And so Balaam had not served God well and done a variety of things. Folks don't know who Balaam is, they can go read about it, it's written down. And Balaam had wanted to die in an honorable way, like prophets do, and God didn't let him die in an honorable way. And so I had a lot of frustration as I tried to serve God. I tried to do the things I do. So my thought was, and I was questioning God. I'm saying, this is the end that you have lined up for me? I said, I felt bad. I felt so unworthy that was the end that God had planned for me. To just get shot down like a dog by making from a military perspective, the most stupid decision ever, and get shot down like a dog with my own gun from an illegal immigrant who shouldn't even be in this country, and a political party that hail to them like they're some kind of king. I don't know what they see in them, but it seems to be what they support instead of other things they should support. That was what was in my mind. I felt so unworthy to think that that's what God had lined up for my end. And it wasn't what He had lined up for my end. And I'm thankful for that. But that's what was on my mind. I was never afraid. It wasn't that, and I don't have any remorse. I hope that kid that's in the Coleman County Jail finds Jesus and turns his side of the story into a good story. And that's up to him. But from my perspective, I'm just thankful. I know this was not an accident. And I know that that voice that told me, just throw it down and go, needed to send me through this for his own purposes. You know, and I needed to go through this. So I don't have any regrets. I know the right outcome. It would have been so easy for me to just slap him around the back seat till he quit moving. But that wasn't what the plan was. And God's plan is better.
Well said.
It might be painful, but it's better.
And I know you got a long, road of recovery ahead of you, but you're in good spirits. How are you really feeling right now?
I hurt. Everything on me hurts. It's been an amazing amount of pain. I'm thankful to have the support group that I have, and more to call. Nothing's working right. If I could eat a pea and it just make my stomach just swell up like a balloon full of baking soda just got vinegar poured in it, and it just hurts. It from a comfort perspective, it's awful. But that's my body. My spirit's fine, and I know that God intends all this for good and for His glory, which is coming. It's coming, because that's all I want to do is be used by Him. And how can I be sad about that? How can I be mad at the kid over in the jail there, and when God used him for a better purpose, whether he ever takes it to his own eternal advantage or not? But God used that kid, and He used me, and I'm thankful for that. I can't be in any way sad about that, even when the worst of the pain comes. I know it will pass. My spirits are fine.
Anything else I didn't ask you wanted to add or say, sir?
Anything you think of that I didn't say that?
Pretty well covered it. We were scared on our end, but when he called me, it was definitely, it was really powerful to me, and it has actually affected a lot of other people that are close to us right now. But when he called me, he was so focused on making sure that this event didn't affect my faith. His love for Christ was just so outstanding that he forgot to tell me he loved me. So when he was telling me he was getting off the phone, I started hollering at him, because I didn't know if this was the last time I was going to talk with my dad. But I started hollering at him that I loved him, and he told me he loved me back. And I got off the phone with him and told my wife I'm going to Birmingham. But that moment was just so powerful, and I mean, I'm still trying to digest it, that his faith was so strong. That's just where he was. He just wanted to make sure that we knew that God was good, no matter what happened.
I know this was orchestrated. There's just no doubt that the things that happen can't be coincidence. First off, anything in me, for folks that know me, you tell anybody that knows me that I just threw my gun down and ran off into the woods, they'd say there's no chance of that. But yet that's what happened. And then this kid, who, hopefully God's got a plan for him, because he shouldn't have lived. The boy was hurt. It's hurt bad. He took a major blow. Now, I had birdshot in that round, and so what he took was birdshot, but he took it from point blank range, which is essentially a slug. He should have died right there, but yet he found the ability to get out and from his perspective, execute me. I couldn't. It wasn't just an accident. For me to leave, have a chance to just jump across the fence and run off into the woods, I knew he wasn't going to chase me. And for me not to do that, first off, I wouldn't have left the gun. Second off, if I was going to leave the gun because of extenuating circumstances, I would just run off in the woods. And I didn't do that. And then, for me to live through that, which was pretty miraculous of itself. And at the same time, for God to answer so many prayers I had to show people that He's real. He's everything about Him is real, and He's a miracle working God, and He's so good. And but we have this world that we live on. We got to navigate best we can, and to show it not from a position where you go to church on Sunday morning and people stand there and say, "Oh, hallelujah, ain't God great?" And then on Monday they don't want to deal with you and your problems, but to go there and tell it to somebody from a point where that you're, I thought there's a good chance I was going to die, and rightfully so. There was a really good chance I was going to die, but I got a chance to tell my son, don't lose faith. God's plan is perfect. It ain't about us. It's not about us. Take your faith to your grave. God's goodness does not depend on your health, on your prosperity, whether it's personal or financial prosperity. God's goodness does not depend on that. He's an almighty God, and He can do things a lot of different ways. And just stay the faith, and I had a chance to say that when the chips were down, and that meant a lot to me, to be able to express that in a way that nobody can deny it. You know.
Would you say that your faith is stronger after going through this than it was before?
I would like to think that I had complete faith in God then, and I still do. But if you remember the story of Elijah, where the story of Baal and Elijah called down fire from heaven, and then Jezebel sent her folks to go kill him, and he got really scared, and he was hiding from her. And so even the great prophet Elijah had kind of a breakdown, weaknesses in faith. I'm not so bold as to think that my faith can't be tested in ways to make me not hold up to that level of scrutiny, but I'd like to think that I am. I'd like to think that my faith is strong enough that no matter what God throws at me, I'm going to stand firm. Yeah. But is there a significant difference from immediately before to immediately after? No, not significant difference. It was just another experience of watching God be God. And it wasn't the first, so it wasn't like I didn't have any faith experience, and now I do. It's just another one, and in maybe an even more powerful way.